Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
All right, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Kraig Burgess with me here today. Kraig's a friend of mine. Kraig is an orthopedic hand and wrist surgeon here in Phoenix. He's been in the Valley almost 20 years. Is that right, Kraig? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. And I look forward to the conversation we have over the next several minutes. And that's exactly right. I've been in the Valley since 2005. I came out and hung a shingle, which is something that not many people do anymore, and was able to find success just working hard and joining several hospitals, taking a lot of call. That eventually evolved into a transition to a big group practice that had a lot of legacy in the Valley and was a well-respected group. And I didn't see the ability to maintain that independence for the rest of my career. And that move was a good one. It was a good one for several years. And then, we had our own internal struggles and our own problems with some of the collections. And eventually that group began to look outward for solutions and sold to Banner. And before that sale occurred, then I went in a different direction and joined another group, an even larger group that has several offices throughout the Valley. It's called Ortho Arizona. And it's been a good move. And I feel privileged to have come out and basically took a loan, joined a surgery center as an investment within the first 3 months, even though I hadn't made a dime yet. And then walked through that process of running my own practice and saw really what it took to be a small business owner and have my S corporation. Right. And then to make a decision to join a group, and then to walk through the process of moving up in the ranks of the leadership there to be vice president of that group. And then to see some of the difficulties of having a large multi-specialty orthopedic group, which we were maybe 17, 18 guys. And then to have to start all over again. Right. And join a different group and a bigger group. And I can tell you, startovers don't do well financially. So every time you have a start and stop, especially in medicine, it's a great reset. And there's a few great resets in life. And they always talk about, a divorce may be the greatest inhibition to the accumulation of wealth, while also restarting your practice and starting over again is a pretty big one too, because you effectively lose all of your collections. And it takes time to get on insurance plans. It takes time to generate the revenue and to begin to collect money again. So I've been through some of those and have lived through some of those. But at the end of the day, I'm pleased with where I am. I think it's a good group, and even excited about some of the things that we're doing as a group that try to curtail some of the difficulties in medicine, which is declining reimbursement and increasing costs. So we're not really being paid anymore today to do the procedures that we did even 20 years ago, but obviously the cost of medicine has increased exponentially.
Right. So that's a great point, to be in a unique position to know what it's like to run a practice as a lone proprietor as well as in a group. There's pros and cons to both, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
We'll talk more about the future in a little bit, but moving forward, what are you hoping to do with your current group?
I think with the current group, one of the things that we found success in the East Valley is finally no longer renting from somebody else, but making the strategic decision to begin to invest in our own medical office buildings, and trying to partner with some synergistic companies that could potentially be tenants of ours. And then even building into that ambulatory surgery centers, which would in effect then pay ourselves rent. So that's been very successful in the East Valley, also another center in Scottsdale, and we're hoping to replicate that in the West Valley. So my latest task is to try to get involved in the process of acquiring a building, going through the tenant improvements, and then also potentially building an ambulatory surgery center that would complement that facility. So I'm excited about what that may do for the group, and setting up ways that new partners coming into the group could become real estate investors, and finding ways that some of the legacy guys who perhaps have been around for a long time have some opportunities to move into retirement without just abruptly stopping their careers. It's very hard in medicine to be part-time. I used to joke in my old practice that I would work till Wednesday for the government, Thursday for the staff, and Friday for me. And again, it's very difficult. So if you begin to chip away at the amount of hours that you're working, it's not a linear change in your salary or what you take home. It's definitely exponential in the wrong direction, and you feel it very quickly. So the more that we can do to offset increasing costs, decreasing reimbursement through ancillary revenue streams, and then also moving into the real estate realm is exciting, and hopefully we'll be successful at that, even despite the current climate and interest rates and the other things that may be barriers.
Sure. Okay. And you touched a little bit on the risk associated with changes, right? The costs anyway. How has your experience affected your appetite for risk moving forward? Obviously, you don't want to do too many start and stops, but in terms of growing the practice and branching out into these other revenue streams, for example.
So personally, I definitely don't want to go through that start-stop evolution again. It creates a bad couple of years, and we only have a finite period of time, and I'll be 52 in less than 2 months, so I'm running out of runway, and you don't have that much time to have some of these years cannibalized by a start and stop or leaving money on the table with a former group. So I've learned a lot from that, but I've also learned a lot, through Ortho Arizona. We have committees, we have strategic growth committees that try to figure out where are the deficits, where are the partners that we need, how do we bring in new providers and compete with hospital systems that are paying guaranteed salaries, and not yet accommodate for the physicians who are perhaps closer to retirement. Because again, we're all pulling the same wagon, and we all need to sort of chip in with the overhead. But we've been strategic on at least figuring out ways that we can stratify some of that risk. We're patient. It's with some sense of due diligence. We do market research to figure out where our patient draw is coming from. Where are the different providers? When are the leases ending? How can we begin to consolidate some of our number one and number two greatest costs, which are people and buildings? And I think that they've done a very successful job of doing that. And I've been kind of on the sidelines for a while after my PTSD from the last group and kind of going through that process. I just kind of sat on the sidelines and just tried to work hard and take good care of patients. But the West Side will affect me, and they've asked me to be a part of that. So I think it's a great learning opportunity.
Sure, for sure. And often good learning opportunities are uncomfortable, but that's partly the challenge and why we grow. You mentioned staffing and probably partnerships too. In building your team, what sort of traits do you look for? I've recently been reminded of the saying, hire slow, fire fast. Right, and it's hiring slow means really scrutinizing your hiring process. Can you speak to how you select a team?
I think I'm bad at hiring. I see somebody and interview somebody, and I don't drill down into the individual as much as I should, and sometimes almost find myself selling the idea of working for us as opposed to finding out if this is the right person. And I see the best in people, and I make assumptions that, this person seems fantastic. So I would say I'm probably not the best person, but conceptually speaking, I think that the culture has changed a lot. And in my first practice, there was tremendous longevity. There was very little turnover, and you knew these people and you grew together, and that part has changed. So I've never been, I've never gone through we'll call it a decade of practice where I've seen so much change and so much turnover, and some of the mid-level staff or some of the medical assistants, I mean, they've been to 4 or 5 places, and they're there for a while, and then maybe somebody pays a couple bucks more and they leave.
A lot of turnover. Yep.
a lot of turnover, and that's at a high cost in the education process to get somebody up to speed, the lost revenue from mistakes that occur, not being able to see the same number of patients. Those are huge. And I've heard the concept before of, pay 10% better than the competition and you'll cure your turnover problem. And maybe there's some value to that, because obviously there's the cost of a yearly salary in the turnover process of hiring a new person. And that's terrible. I've also heard the concept of every year, get rid of your worst 10%. And that's another sort of solution to the employee problem, is not being afraid to not necessarily trim the fat, but get rid of the underperformers and open up the space for somebody who can perhaps do a better job, which I think is also an interesting concept. Right now in our group, I think we've got a strong HR team, and they're looking at employee retention. They're looking at referral programs. They're looking at exit interviews and where have we failed employees and how can we do a better job to set them up for success and promotion and to remain competitive in the marketplace as far as salaries go.
Right. So it's not just cultivating the right environment for the team, but also getting rid of the personalities that don't fit, that might be toxic or distracting, and making sure they're in the right roles.
It's true. And one of the problems that perennially creates conflict between upper management and physicians is that we have an intimate relationship with our core group. And that may be our x-ray tech, our front office girls, and our medical assistants. But you have this higher level overview of middle management who's trying to keep all this together. But when there's a problem with, say, an hourly employee who's at that satellite location and they're being reprimanded, then the employee is going to the doctor saying, well, hey, they're threatening to do this or they want to do that. And then we're in a panic thinking I'm going to lose my medical assistant and I don't want to start over with that because that's going to directly impact my ability and my happiness. Then we turn around and go back to our managers and we begin to undermine their leadership decisions, which is no good. So I've learned that over the years, that I need to stay out of that, be supportive of my hired upper level management, but also be supportive, of my employees, have a listening ear, have some level of compassion, but then also encourage them to work through this and to talk to the managers about this, and to stay out of the making promises and, well, I'm going to talk to them for you and we're going to get through this. So no, I don't do that anymore.
Okay, right. Yeah, it's hard because it's relationship based, right? If it gets personal,
it does, and you try to create that personal connection so that they enjoy coming to work, or that they have a level of happiness in their job, because it doesn't take much, and it doesn't take much unhappiness, and it doesn't take much of a raise to have somebody just move into a different direction. And it's so difficult to replace some of those key players that make a difference in your day-to-day ability to, throughput and do a good job taking care of patients.
Okay, excellent. Now, it's pretty clear when you deal with certain individuals. I like to point to physicians a lot because they generally have their act together. In order to get to that stage of life, right, they've had to get their personal life together, their health together, right? So what influenced you? Was there anything early on? Was there a mentor or a particular book or something that influenced your outlook on health, wealth, success that seems to have stuck with you?
That's I grew up in Ohio, in a small Southeast Ohio farm town. It was not terribly academically encouraging. The idea of going to medical school was never something that I had thought was possible. At one point as a freshman, I thought I could entertain this idea of being a doctor, and my health teacher in ninth grade, he asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said a physician, and it was almost sort of laughable. And I was a shy kid, so this was hard to hear. It was also embarrassing, and it was embarrassing when he would kind of call me out when something would get brought up, and he would say, well, let's ask the doctor. And it was humiliating. And when I went to college, I went with no major at all. And it's humbling to say that if it wasn't for Mike Morocco, who was my transfer from Eastern Michigan to Ohio State, who happened to be in the same dorm across the hall, who was pre-med. And when he told me this, I thought I was so green and so country that when I roll in and he's telling me he's pre-med, I thought, well, don't you have to go to like Harvard or Princeton or something to become a doctor?
Right.
He's like, no, Kraig, there's a medical school right here, right at Ohio State. So I had no idea. It was it was him who encouraged me to actually try. He's like, you have the ability. You just need to, change some of the work ethic, apply yourself, and let's see what happens. And when I did, and I went from trying to learn all the general studies because I had no major, and then when finally I had to take all of the difficult classes, and I remember taking biochem, and biology and physics all in the same semester, and it was miserable. I didn't do well, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to bode well for me. And my pre-med advisor said, Kraig, this is not going to work. He's like, I honestly think you should look at some other considerations for your future. And I was taking aptitude tests to see where else I might fit in, and decided once more, I'm like, all right, I'm going to buckle down. And then from that moment on, every quarter was a dean's list or a 4-point, and everything opened up. And then I wasn't the smartest kid. And then getting into orthopedics is a competitive field. And I like to think that I just outworked people, just physically outworked people, and tried to be likable. It's funny. You can be a smart guy and just still lack basic common sense of being on time, saying thank you, being easy to work with, treating everybody with respect, and just working hard. And honestly, that can make a huge difference. And even with people who rotate with me, those are things that I'll pick up on. Like, this guy's going to be successful. He has some of those intangible traits that just make him a good person, even if he's not the smartest person with the highest IQ or the highest board scores. And I can appreciate that. I can liken myself a bit to that.
Excellent. That's great advice. It's not too important that you can regurgitate what was on page 173 of the surgery textbook for this case, right? It's more about, do people want to work with you? Do they trust you?
Right.
So
I would even say today, I mean, I don't consider myself the absolute brightest, smartest, surgeon in the state, the valley, the city. But I do try to do a good job. I try to listen to patients. I try to make that connection. I try to let them be heard. I try to explain things, what we're doing and why. And I have high humility and low pride. And I'm quick to tell them that, and quick to encourage them. I'm like, look, if this doesn't make sense, then have somebody else look at this as well, and get their opinion as well. I would easily recommend that.
Absolutely. That's an incredibly valuable skill, I think, in this day and age in particular, where a lot of people have, like I was alluding to, the data is there. Everybody has their phone. They can look up the exact details on something, but understanding it and knowing which information to relate to, and just the personal factor is a huge deal that we've gone away from in the past few years, particularly in medicine.
I would agree.
Everybody's too busy staring at the computer while they log the cases or the patient information, and the patient is just, they're almost like dictating. It's unfortunate.
I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. And some of the AI is actually making it interesting.
Right. The co-pilots in the physician co-pilots and such.
Yep. So helping us with our documentation so that we could be more attentive, as opposed to writing, typing, dictating, and documenting. Some of that stuff is being generated on the back end, which is exciting. I loathe dictating as much as any other physician out there. I loathe the charting, and I try to maximize my efficiency by having somebody at a lower pay scale pushing any button that they can possibly push that don't have to push. I'd rather have them doing it. I'm the only person who can actually see the patient, develop the plan, and throughput those patients. So I try to stratify risk and be efficient that way as well. But hopefully with the new AI and the new dictation software, that will also improve.
How do you approach learning those skills, new skills, especially those outside your comfort zone?
Say that again.
How do you approach learning new skills, right? Implementing AI or whatever it may be.
my new nurse practitioner is great with technology. He's great with computers, and he has been a perfect fit for me because I'm not. And he is the one that I will constantly look to and say, Brandon, help me figure this out. Brandon, this is broken. Please hit the buttons and make this work again for me. I like it when the tech works, and when I find it to be valuable, then 100%, I'm going to adopt that technology. From a procedural standpoint, it's the basic. It's our continuing medical education. It's the ease of access to videos for tutorials for continuing med ed, to different procedures. I remember coming into practice, and it was all of the the big books and binders from the past and from residency, that you had a procedure coming up, you're digging through your textbooks and just trying to review and make sure that you're on point for the next day's surgery. It's like sometimes my kids would look at me and I'm like, no, Daddy still has homework. Yeah, he's still studying. He's still making sure. He still wants to be correct and accurate. There's no room for error. It's an interesting career where there is no grace. You're expected to be on point. You're expected to be polite, timely, accurate, and you're right. And you can't have that bad day, and you can't say, I'm sorry, I forgot your ketchup on your carryout order today. There's really kind of no grace in that. It doesn't work that way, right?
No.
I sometimes, I was gonna say, I sometimes joke too, where I wish sometimes I was a mechanic, because you can open up the engine, you can pop open the hood, and you can tinker with the engine and then try it again and take it for another drive and try it again before you give it back to the client. In surgery, you get one chance. You open the hood once, you better be right, and the car better run well, and that's it. There's no going back. So it's always an interesting perspective and analogy when I think about trying to take care of patients. But to carry on the idea of where tech has brought us, it's great now. If there's something that I want to learn about or a technique I want to see, there are many sites that are physician-driven, that are validated, that we can go in and watch different procedures, or from different vendors, or with different techniques with different anchors or screws or implants. So that's been tremendous. And access to online articles, and not physically going to the library. You're my age. You remember that?
Yep.
You're going into the library, finding these journals and Xeroxing copies. And I mean, those days are gone, thankfully.
Yeah. That was not the most efficient use of our time. We're pretty spoiled now.
Yes, we are.
So I want to talk to you about so much stuff. We're running low on time already. So looking ahead, what trends excite you in your industry, right? Kind of on the tech side, we were just talking about, and how are you planning to leverage them, right, for growth and or impact in your space?
So I get solicited for marketing. Hey, we're going to grow your patient base. We're going to get you new referrals. We're going to get you new consults, or I want to grow your social media so you can get new appointments. And I've been very, very blessed. And I know that this could change at any moment. And one thing that I have learned over the almost 20 years in medicine is that nothing in medicine is guaranteed. And I'll digress for a moment and say your salary included. And that you think that you're going to have this continuous upward trend in your revenue, that's wrong. It's pretty amazing how much I've seen salary swings, and it's not based on the number of cases I'm doing or patients that I'm seeing. It's just there are so many other variables that can derail your own personal reimbursement. I've been humbled by that several times, but I've been blessed to have a patient base. So I've never looked at these marketing tools to grow the number of patients. That's never been the problem. My problem has always been, how can I more effectively manage patients, still give them a good experience, make sure that I'm taking good care of them, but do it in a more effective and efficient manner. And some of that is, running 2 rooms in the surgical centers provides tremendous efficiency. I've wanted to leverage tech on some of the most common conversations that I have on a repetitive basis. I've told Brandon, we need to get some volunteers for their first post-op carpal tunnel, and let's get a good video of this entire postoperative interview and all the details that go along with this, which I've had that conversation 10,000 times. And when somebody comes in for their first post-op and my MA takes their sutures out, she's going to give them the iPad, they're going to play the video.
Right.
And then when I come in, I can answer any other questions, examine the patient, make sure everything looks good, but they've had that information, they've had the ability to consume it, hear it, pause it, listen to it again. That was one thing I've wanted to do. The other was, anytime somebody tells you you're going to have surgery, you pretty much stop listening. You don't hear anything else after that. So a lot of those details are missed.
Right.
So there's a point in time where I would collect their email address, which I could then reach out and touch them again in the future if there was something that we wanted to do from a branding perspective. But then I would send them a video, and it was a video basically explaining the consent process of signing somebody up for surgery and what's going to happen next, because they don't remember that.
Yes.
Day of surgery, they would get the same thing. They're laying there nervous. They're not listening to me talk about their post-op instructions. So I would email them a little YouTube video of their post-op instructions. And it worked well. And I think a lot of patients appreciated that. The other is obviously the AI part and what we can do with some of that technology. It'll be fascinating to see some of the regional anatomy, what we can do with some 3D models. And I even saw actually on social media, a guy who did a shoulder arthroscopy wearing an Oculus or wearing one of the Apple 3D image things, where he was doing the surgery so he could still see point of view, but he was also able to look up and manipulate things in space, including the patient's shoulder CT scan and imaging, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So it'll be neat to see where that takes us in the future.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Those are all great answers. Thank you. But you did mention the roller coaster of revenue and reimbursement and stuff, and it makes me wonder, how do you plan for your financial future for both stability and growth? What's multiple revenue streams, or is a common answer? What are sort of your strategies?
Stop having resets that would then allow for that continuous investment. I think there are a lot of physicians who can make some bad investments. I think there are a lot of physicians who've heard that over the years, and they take a very traditional approach. They try to max out their 401k, their IRA, their qualified programs through their employment base, and then maybe do a little extra on the side. As time has passed, I've tried to look beyond that and also feel that it may be important to have that base, but I think that I want to believe that we can do better. And I want to believe that there's a finite amount of dirt out there and buildings on it, and trying to move into that space and still invest in some of those qualified plans, but then to start to move money into areas that can build not only growth, but also passive income streams. That's a lot of where we've been able to work together and collaborate with different opportunities there. So I'm excited about that. I want to see that change over time. And I want to see my kids begin to learn and understand that. I joke with my kids and tell them that they're at a very, very high risk of not having the same lifestyle that they have today when they grow up. I'm almost certain of it. Neither one of them are looking towards going to law school or getting a career in medicine. So it's got to be something. And I've tried to teach them the power of money and the power of exponential growth. And Lex, who is my son, who's now 12, I got something called a green light card. It's like a debit card. But this debit card, I can transfer money over to it, and it's got savings, it's got investment, it's got tithing or charitable, and it's got an investment. And so I was proud to see Lex moving a ton of his money that he'd been basically sitting under his mattress into this platform, and now he's excited about stocks, and he's thinking about stocks, and he was trying to get home quick before 5 o'clock because he wanted to buy more stock before the market closed. I was kind of helping him understand. I'm like, hey buddy, we're in Phoenix. The market is closed, but it doesn't matter. We can still buy your Nvidia stock or your Amazon stock. So it's funny. So he's not buying and selling, but he's now up to 5 or 6 different stocks, and he gets excited, and his portfolio has made him money, and that's cool to see. So if I can instill that in him, I think that would be tremendous, because I am truly blessed with the opportunities I've been given. God blessed me with an ability and the mindset to take care of patients, and I've been blessed with an income that allows me a good lifestyle. But my big regret with medicine is that I don't make passive income, and I don't make money when I'm on vacation, and I don't make money when I sleep. So
Right.
back to your question, is what can I do to take that hard-earned money and try to make it work for me in a meaningful way, so that when I am asleep, when I am on vacation, I don't feel that hit as much.
For sure.
Anytime you're away, you're still paying your overhead.
Yep.
That doesn't go away, and you take on water fast. And if you're generating all that overhead expense and you're not bringing in any revenue, you're losing that referral source and you're losing that income stream. So that's my dream, and that's my hope for this last bit of runway, is to, strategically put money to work that it can begin to grow passive income streams, and also things that I can use in retirement.
Right, right. And so in addition to what I do, I've also seen that a lot of high income earners sort of plateau in their industry if they don't get creative or branch out and bridge another industry, right? You become an expert in legal stuff, but do you also have an entrepreneurial side or something, right? Or a physician who also owns the surgery center, right? That's where you see the
Right.
multipliers start to happen.
It's interesting, because I always think too, what can I do? What can I build? What can I start that would do X, Y, Z, and to start to build some of those other revenue streams more passively. And you realize you got to be careful, because I spent a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money to get to where I am today. And if I could still sort of focus on what I do best, which is taking care of patients, but then look within that industry to try to find other ways that you can grow from within, as opposed to trying to reinvent something that I have no business inventing. And there's also that fear of I worked hard, and at this point, am I willing to leverage some of my life savings on something that may go south when I really don't know much about it? I don't know. Right. And so far, the answer has been no, to a certain degree. And again, that's why I appreciate you and our relationship. You give me an opportunity to own real estate without having to be a real estate expert. You give me an opportunity to understand, the finances of owning real estate and what that means from an arm's length. And I appreciate that. And it's a tremendous education, and it's a tremendous opportunity, and I appreciate those. But I'm not ready to do that on my own.
Right, right. And that's to your point on trading your time for money a little bit. That's kind of, as you get more experienced, right? You don't want to be compensated for your time. You want to be compensated for your knowledge, right? And the things you've learned through your experience, right? And you run a practice, how to make the practice better, how to grow it, how to leverage it with the surgery center, things like that as well can be incredibly valuable. Like Warren Buffett doesn't get paid by the hour, right? People pay him just for like his opinion on something, right? That's how valuable, right, your mind can be, instead of just a body.
I agree, and I like to think that some of the gray hair in our group, and some of the hard times that we've been through, and the number of guys that we have working together, and a C-suite with intelligent people with experience, beginning to really kind of bring the group together, which was the big step during that COVID era, but then beginning to propel the group forward in ways that are just outside of the traditional revenue stream, which is just patient care, and that's going to be an important part that I think will maintain some of the solidarity of the group, because I don't see reimbursement changing for the better. But if we can again work as a group and look at some of those ancillary streams and look at some of the real estate options, I think that we can stay independent, because more and more groups are becoming either bought out by hospitals or bought out by private equity. And we came close at one time, and I'm very, very glad we did not. I think the future is brighter if we don't. But the private practices are truly going away in America. And I don't know if that pendulum ever swings back. But as a group of providers ourselves, we're competing with those hospital systems who are
Right.
perhaps paying back student loans or giving guaranteed income. So having something else that allows our practice to continue to grow for the next generation, I think it's important to have something that we can also offer them, and that may be some of the ownership in the ASCs and some of the real estate.
Excellent answers. Thank you for all that, Kraig. I don't want to forget to mention one of your side endeavors lately has been being a medical officer. Is that right? With the SWAT force? Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, it's I've done volunteer work in the past. I've done volunteer work abroad, and it's extremely rewarding. And probably about a year and a half ago, an opportunity to volunteer with the Arizona State Police, so the DPS, and their SWAT team came up, and it was an arduous process. It was definitely a deep dive into your history, back into the high school days and everything else, and lie detector tests and background tests and drug tests and interviews. It was a deep dive, and then all the training and learning some of those perishable skills from years ago. With I haven't been plugging holes anytime recently, and learning how to intubate and even starting IVs is something that the nursing staff typically do at the surgery center. So all those skills, which are good skills to have, it's been awesome to kind of brush up on those, but then awesome to work with these guys. I mean, these are tremendous people who risk their lives for us, and to be able to help right here at home and to participate with that group and to learn from that group and to serve that group has been very rewarding. And in fact, just last week, I finished up the official SWAT week. So I was able to train with the operators, with the new class coming in, and their hopes to become SWAT operators moving forward. But was able to do everything that they did. There was some nervous guys in the room when I'm breaching doors and swinging these big hammers through doors and throwing flash grenades and doing some of the other things. They thought I was going to end my career on their watch, but nothing happened, and it truly was a great experience. So it becomes something that I can volunteer right here at home. I don't have to leave the family. I don't have to fly anywhere or do anything different. And it's pretty funny, because I think if you ask my son, if you were a 12-year-old and you ran into my son at school and they said, "Hey, what's your dad do?" he would say he's a SWAT doctor. He works with a SWAT team before he's going to say he's an orthopedic hand surgeon. It's pretty funny. He thinks it's fascinating.
Oh, it
and
is.
I definitely wanted their buy-in, from the kids, from Mary, that they were good with this. This may mean sometimes that I'm not home, and they're all in. So they're excited for it. I'm excited for it, and they're a good group of guys.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome. And they're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have them. Having functional hands and wrists this is what makes us human, right? Opposable thumbs and stuff is very important. But to a child, it's safety and SWAT is pretty impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. They've told me several times their wives sleep better knowing that, hey, there's a doc on site. I mean, I'm right there in the armor. So when we're servicing a high risk warrant, for example, I'm feet away. I'm not breaking down doors. I'm not shooting bad guys. But I am there in case something happens, to the innocent public, to the operators, and then also even to the suspects.
Okay. So. Excellent. Strong work, Kraig. Thank you very much. So
thanks, Tim.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Kraig, for joining me today. For our listeners who want to learn more about you or connect, where can they find you?
I think the best option would be our website. So orthoarizona.org is our website, and you can learn more about me, our group, all the locations where we're providing care for patients, and all the different subspecialties within our group itself.
All right. Thank you, Kraig. Thanks again. We appreciate you sharing your story and your insights into business and your success. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.